has mandatory military service for both men and women. It's the only mandatory service in the world that has mandatory service for women, actually. And it's 2 years for women and 3 years for men, for every person at the age of 18. And for me, it was important to make a public refusal. It's important to mention this because there are a lot of ways out of the Israeli army. The most common one is mental health. 12% of Israeli society get out of the army on mental health. Probably not all crazy. And it's something that's actually pretty common, but we just don't talk about it. Like, leave it aside. But for me and a group of friends who were active at the time, it was important to actually publicly refuse. And in a way use the fact that we knew that we will be in prison as a media stage, because we wanted to address the Israeli society and tell them something's fundamentally wrong here. We would rather sit in prison than be a part of this system. And we want you to know that. As I said, we were a group of friends. We had about 100 people sign a letter saying that they will refuse because of the occupation. The letter was sent to the Ministry of Defense and the Prime Minister. And eventually 10 of us refused publicly and were in prison. The Shministim letter, which was mentioned before, is the name of the letter. I have to say it's not our invention. The first one was back in 1970. A group of seniors in Israel said that they would refuse to serve, that they won't refuse, but they asked the Prime Minister to do everything she can, at the time it was a woman, everything she can for peace with Egypt at the time, because as soldiers to be, they can demand it of her. In 79 was the first time that people used the same name, Shministim. Shministim is 12th graders in Hebrew. Used it as a refusal letter, and it was used many times later, and we just joined on to that. Personally, I spent 2 months in prison and another 3 months in detention, and eventually was released on mental health, so I'm officially crazy, don't believe a word I say. East Jerusalem was the first place that I became active in. I think about a month or two after I got out of prison was the first time I actually saw a house demolition. And this is a pretty amazing experience. Maybe amazing is not the correct word. When we arrived to where the house demolition should have been or would be, it was closed down by police, military. You can't get anywhere close. We climbed on an adjacent house on the roof to try to at least take some pictures. And family was taking out all of their things from their house. And a family usually gets between 15 minutes and an hour to get all of their things out of their house. And I'm standing there on a roof thinking, what would I take? And I figured that I can't really give a list. I can't think of it. It's something that is not even something I can imagine doing. And then after all this, the demolition itself is about 5 minutes, and there's no house. And for me, that was a very strong experience, mainly because this was happening in my city. This was happening literally 10 minutes from my house. And it would never happen to me, and it wasn't even something that I could think of happening to me. The time I became active with the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions, and just to close that part, rebuilding a house, which is something that we do quite a lot, can sometimes take even 3 days. So that's the more optimistic side of that story. I'm often asked when I go back to Israel after speaking around the world, why do you take the dirty laundry outside? Why do you speak to the world about this? And I think that one of the important things to understand is that we're not taking the dirty laundry outside, it's outside. And it's outside because Israel, if Israel and Palestine were disconnected from the rest of the world, there would be no occupation. This would have been solved years ago. And the truth is that the occupation is sustainable because it is profitable. And because a lot of people make a lot of money out of it. And because the United States and the European Union and many others fund it, Israel's main export is military trade. And that the reason that we can be so successful in it is that we can prove that it works. we can prove that the technology of the fence works, and so we can sell it to the U.S. when they want to build a border with Mexico. We can prove that drones work in Castled and the attack in Gaza. They were very successful. So we can sign billion-dollar deals with France now, selling them drones. Especially now that the whole warfare is changing. Warfare now is more urban warfare, the whole anti-terror, which is something that most armies in the world are not used to deal with. And we've been doing it for quite a few good years. And it's a good business. And in many ways, I think that the fence, we know that the fence in Mexico couldn't have been built without the Israeli technology, but the fence in Israel wouldn't have been built if there wasn't a need for fences in Mexico. And that's the important thing to understand. There is no reason to have an occupation, to continue the occupation, except for the fact that it's profitable. And when I say that it's profitable, and this is with the whole Occupy Wall Street and Occupy Old Line spirit, it's not profitable to the majority of Israelis. The majority of Israelis have their taxes going to building settlements and developing settlement infrastructure. The people who make money out of it is that 1% that we keep hearing about. And they're not all in Israel. Quite a few of them are here. And obviously not only. And for me, this is the most important thing to say when I'm leaving the country and speaking other places. I think it is my duty to be active in this field because it's my government that is implementing these policies, because it is my society that voted for this government, because it's my tax money that is paying for this, and because my friends are actually implementing it while being in the army. But in the same breath, I think it is your duty to make sure that the money for this stops coming, because it wouldn't exist.